Good morning. Before we start, on the 22nd of November, if you live in the east coast of Ireland, the Greater Dublin area, or even anywhere really, I'm doing a 2-hour talk. It's a Thursday night in Naas in County Kildare. If you look at my website, Moss Upon Stones, I haven't updated it yet. I'll put the details in there. It's also on my Facebook page, and on my Twitter page I'll be doing a 2-hour talk on how paganism really has flourished in the most surprising ways during the last 2,000 years of Christianity, not just in Ireland but around Europe as a whole. So hopefully you can come along to see that. I do very few Irish speaking dates. Nobody in Ireland really knows who I am, and that's okay. It's just how it is. And so if you want to see me, I'm in Naas on the 22nd of November. Very rare speaking date. Treat yourself to an early Christmas Yule present. I was watching a documentary, those Facebook clips the other day of David Attenborough and Brian Cox, two BBC establishment stooges, going on about Darwin's The Origin of Species book and talking about it in such a way like it was this holy sacred text. The usual, like it was infallible. It could not be. It's really the Bible of the aristocrats. And David Attenborough, I know a lot of these people love him and think he's wonderful, but he was born into absolute privilege. He's part of the ruling class, and he was, as a young guy, right out of university, he was handed BBC Two, the TV station, as basically a gift to do what he wanted. Once he appeased the aristocrats and the royal family and all the other those groups he had to do, which he's done for years, and people go on about his wildlife programs and how they educated the world. Life on Earth being a very famous one that started in the 80s and sold all over the world, famous for its wildlife photography. But now with the things like YouTube, we're starting to see how shambolic much of that is. You watch on YouTube, you can see videos of zebras killing lions, of gazelles killing cheetahs, of I think it's water buffalo teaming up with crocodiles to kill a pack of lions who were hunting them. I mean, and you'd have, I was always on the BBC's Life on Air because of this Darwinist class system, basically ultimately based on the class system. The noble lion, it tears asunder the gazelle because this is the beauty of nature. The strong eat the weak must submit to the natural forces and power of the rich. And when he really said things like lions, he was talking about the royal families, and he would, this kind of, and yet if you look at them, you look at someone like Prince Charles or Prince Edward of the British royal family, they're a far cry from their ancestors, Alexander the Great and so on. It makes you wonder about Darwinism with them, but Darwinism was really a mandate also for genocide. Now, I agree in theory with the basic premise of the theory of evolution, of course. There's lots of evidence for it. But it's not the full thing. It's not the full thing. The trigger mechanisms have never been fully determined. They just haven't. And they have to invent things like punctuated equilibrium, which means that basically things like flowers all appeared at once out of the blue. It just happened by magic. I think things like Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance sits much better with me in terms of things like that everything is interconnected at some kind of transmission level, and it works together. It's not an accident. It's sometimes, well, it can be an accident, but the triggers are far more complicated and sophisticated than just something trying to stay alive. You just can't explain how very basic organisms can produce such complicated processes like how to emulate a larger predator and so on. It's too complex to just say, oh, it's just random adaptations and random mutations. It's not. True survival of the fittest. There's more to it than that, even though the basic idea of evolutionary change is almost certainly true. But then again, what do I know? I'm only going by what I've read and stuff like that. But you say, well, we all look slightly different than our grandparents, but at the same time too, if it's a progression towards improved models, why does Prince Charles and Prince Edward not look like or be like Alexander the Great? That's what I want to know. But anyway, that's the kind of thing that drives the reductionists bonkers. Because we live in an age where, and you saw this very much within this Brian Cox and David Attenborough, Richard Attenborough, whatever one of those fuckers it is, posh bastards. A line was drawn in the sand that we know everything. That's what they're saying now. Oh, we know everything now. And if we don't know it, we're there. We're working on it. And if they can't even explain consciousness, things like that. But when you draw a finite line in the sand, what you're doing is you're saying, that's it. I've got to defend that line in the sand. And isn't that very much the history of materialistic and reductionist science for the last 50 years at least. Like if you watch things like Carl Sagan from years ago, you didn't have that same kind of bombastic arrogance you get today. It's like, we know it all, we have it all sorted out. You don't. You just don't have it all sorted out. Crowley was right. Science discovers little bits of magic every so often and likes to pat itself on the back for it. That's just the fact of the way it is. When you go to somewhere like CERN, it's like a big ritual temple. People there are all very nice and polite and everything, but that's basically what you're doing, is you're dealing with a temple. NASA's the same. They're all very eager to please in this kind of thing. Everyone's really nice there, but it's like, you get the same kind of vibe there you get in like the Mormon churches and Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's really interesting actually. That kind of sort of like, how are you doing? Have a nice day kind of thing. But yeah, and it's like when you draw that line in the sand in anything, I think it really shows you're spiritually dead. I think a friend of mine says the most spiritual expression any human being can have is to accept that you could be completely wrong about everything, and there's a lot of truth. That's a very, very good way to look at spirituality. The idea that you are not a god, you're not an infallible god, and I think that's why another reason why paganism works so well is because our gods, which don't actually exist, they're just power forces encapsulated in zoomorphic and anamorphic forms. They're full of flaws. They're full of mistakes. They're full of the same pettiness that human beings are full of, but on a more divine, godlike level, with greater charisma and as a result greater consequences. And you think about it, makes a lot of sense. Suppose like you're a working class guy with no power, and you get into a fight over a girl down the street. Well, it only really causes a problem between the two families on the street. Where if you're a king, and you got the hots for a princess overseas, and it leads to a war, well, look at the size of the damage that causes. Now take that to a god level, and you see what I mean. You see the beauty of paganism in terms of humanizing and expanding the metaphor and the allegory to something that makes life a lot more tolerable, because you don't see, where the Abrahamic God, you don't see that. You just see an infallible dictator, and you don't see him in you or you in him, and this is why it has led to such horrors around the world. Now, this brings me to the final point of this video. All you Christians are Jews. Don't come on here and talk to me. Like, I have all these assholes who write all this anti-Semitic stuff all over my comments of this video and all the other videos about how much they hate Zionists, how much they hate the Jews, yet they're praying to their Jewish God. Now that's the ultimate irony of these dumb Christians. Dumb mules. You are the goyim that they said you are. You are that dumb. You are a dumb goyim if you worship the Jewish God and then think you're better than Jews or hate Jews, because you've been suckered into the ultimate sucker punch, for God's sake. The ultimate sucker punch is to be a Christian thinking he's not a Jew. The ultimate self-delusion is a Christian thinking they're not a Jew. Christianity and Islam are just radical branches of Judaism, failed branches of Judaism, ISIS-type branches of Judaism, but Judaism nonetheless. Jesus Christ was the Messiah for the Jews. The Great Commission that he gave to the apostles was to spread Second Temple rabbinical Judaism throughout the world. And that's what the Roman Empire did. And that's what Christianity... And don't give me this guff about, I'm a real Christian, I practice real Christianity. No, real Christianity is payas, phylacteries, yarmulkes. That's what... and wailing walls. That's what if you were practicing real Christianity, you'd have your phylacteries, your your Tiflin, your yarmulke, and you'd be outside the Wailing Wall going like this. That's real Christianity. But because you're a Christian and you're a failed Jew, you are not. You don't do that. You think you're not Jewish, but you are. Everything about you is Jewish. So don't give me this thing. I stand for Europe, and I'm a warrior for Christ. No, hopeless.